Hey everybody, I just wanted to do a quick review of this watch since it seems to be a little underappreciated on YouTube. I can't find like a really great review of it. Not that this is going to be a really great review, this is my first one. I just got this watch today and I don't know even too much about it yet, but I want to talk about some features. It's going to be a little bit in the style of Nick Shabazz, but probably not quite that format. I don't have calipers, so I'm not going to do measurements. They're online, you can find them. But so basically, this little guy is a Casio. Let me get the AMW330B-1AV. And I wish it had a name, but I'll take it because this watch is so far pretty impressive to me. So let's start off here. First off, just right off the bat, you can see it's got a nice kind of heft and weight to it. It's a little bit bigger of a watch. I know, a lot of people like their smaller watches or whatever, but for me, I have fairly big wrists, and I think it works fine. But some people could be bothered by that, so that's something to consider. But things that I do like here, let's just go down the list. All right, right off the bat, you got 100-meter water resistance, which is plenty sufficient. That's kind of the gold standard a bit. 200 you're comfortable, but 100 is plenty, and that's good because this watch, it's pretty much getting a lot of boxes checked all around the watch world, right? So it's got most of these features. So 100-meter water resist, no problem, good to go. The crystal on this guy is mineral. That's okay. It's even advertised on the box. I threw that away now, but it says on the box that it's mineral crystal, which is not as great as like a sapphire crystal, but it looks pretty nice. It might get scratched up a little bit, but that's fine. I'm okay with that. The strap on this guy, pretty comfortable. I was a little bit worried it was going to feel a little too plasticky, a little too flexible. I have, it's like the AMW330B-1AV or something like that. I don't know. But, it's a cheaper, like $20 watch by Casio. I was concerned it was going to have that kind of bracelet because it creaks and things as you move. But this one feels like kind of a legit diver's strap here. So it's pretty comfortable. I'm thinking about swapping it out for a NATO just so there's some fabric between the watch and my skin. But definitely not bad to start off with, and could be improved, but it's pretty good. No complaints here. I also think this watch would look really good with some certain bracelets, just given the complexity of the face. Speaking of the complexity of the face, let's just get into that because there's a lot going on here. Not only do we have your fairly standard dive bezel here, which just goes, clockwise from 0 to 60, although not every increment is labeled. But you can see they're pretty standard bezel. Oh, I'm holding the phone, so it's hard to turn it, but you can imagine it does turn, and it's a pretty satisfying click. And it's, let me think, bi-directional. It'll go either direction, which is not great as a dive bezel, but people aren't really going to be diving with this watch, and it's not even really rated for those kind of depths anyway, so basically useful for setting, little timers or whatever, or just mark a minute and then you can come back to it. You see, okay, this is how long it's been, things like that. Moving on from that, in addition to that on the bezel here, what's interesting is they've also included navigation bezel, which is not, if you just think about it, you can come up with where those numbers should be on the bezel, so it's not super important to me, but it is just kind of nice to have those labeled. What I would have rather had, which I think would have been pretty cool, would be like a countdown bezel. So here, this guy right here, this is the standard issue Instruments pilot mission timer, and you can see it starts at 55 and goes down, and that way you can set like timers rather than kind of like a stopwatch thing. If you set that, if you set the triangle at the minute marker, this one will count down and this one will count up. But so yeah, it would have been cool to see both, although it could potentially be a little confusing because then you could use it as a timer, or like I said with this one, a countdown bezel. And I really do like those countdown bezels, especially since this bezel goes either direction anyway. Normally when it's a dive bezel like this, it's only going to go to the counterclockwise, or I got to think about it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure counterclockwise is the way it would go. But like I said, you've also got this navigation stuff, which I forget how right now, don't ask me, but there's videos on YouTube. You can look at the time and set it and point one of the hands at the sun and stuff like that, and then the bezel will be an accurate compass. So kind of useful just as like a cool navigation thing. Good to have it, looks cool, kind of adds to the fun complexity of this watch, which, side note here, I really think it's got nice sparkle. There's applied, little metal indices in there. I'm not actually sure right now if those have lume in them. If it does, it's not great, but the hands do kind of make up for it. I'm not super knowledgeable about, how good lume is or isn't, because I haven't had that many watches. This is pretty much the only one, and it's not great, but I think it's sufficient on the hands at least. It could be better with the lume on the pips, and I'm not even sure if there's any there on the indices at all. But that's okay. Once again, this watch is kind of hitting all the bases pretty well, and not going crazy above and beyond in any particular area, but I think just generally being a great watch all around for a really good price, and we'll get to that in a second. But so anyway, now that we've gotten through the bezel, we've got navigation bezel, we've got dive bezel. Go in a little bit closer here. You got Casio quartz. We've got date window, always nice. Could have had the day of the week there, but again, not getting every single little feature, but it generally gets pretty much most anything anyone's ever going to want. And it's kind of sad, actually. I met somebody who has one of these watches, and I was like, oh man, that thing is crazy, because I hadn't even seen this watch before. I've been looking into the Casios a bunch. Somehow I haven't seen this thing, and that guy, he was like, oh yeah, and I don't even know how it works. And I also kind of don't exactly know how some of these functions work out, and I need to research them some more. And I've looked into them before, but then I've forgotten how they work because I haven't had one. But it was cool to show him, like, look, this is all the cool things your watch can do, like the different bezel functions. And speaking of which, and it was hidden, I didn't even see it at first. It has can't even see it on this camera. Up in the corner there's a little tachymeter, I don't know how to say it, tachometer, whatever. And those are used, if you have 2 mileposts or whatever, you hit the chronograph, which we'll talk about in a second as well. And you can time just, basically how fast you're going, and I think vice versa. Again, not 100% sure exactly. You got to look into how all these things work. But very cool to have that in addition to these dual functioning bezels and everything. So you've got 2 functions of the bezel, you've got the tachymeter, and of course, to go with that, you've got the chronograph, which, let me put the camera away for a second. Okay, started it. And there we go, off to the races. Pretty good. Looks, does its thing. Down at the bottom, you've got your constant second hands, and then on the left, you've got hours, and then up at the top, you've got minutes. So you look at that, it looks like, I guess it can go up to 12 hours, and then of course, more than that if you just remember how many 12-hour increments have passed. I imagine it wouldn't stop after 12 hours, it'd just keep going. So yeah, let me look at my little list here. Yeah, I think that's about everything I have to say about this little guy. Pretty cool watch. I forget if I said, but it feels very solid. The buttons feel solid, the crown feels solid. It's got a little protection on there for the crown just so it doesn't get caught on anything. Good water resist, decent lume, at least on the hands, could be better. And just very feature complete with a nice kind of complex looking face. And the best thing about this watch is it comes in at, currently on Amazon, $76, which that is pretty good. This one here even was supposed to start out $250. It hardly hasn't, just has pretty much it has some stuff. It's got sapphire crystal and it's got the countdown bezel and things like that. But $76, pretty good for a watch, especially with this complexity. Casio makes some good reliable stuff. And I'm very happy with this thing, having not even known of its existence prior to now. So, quick review, just want to talk about this little watch. I think it's definitely something to be considered by a lot of people. And yeah, it's just got a bunch of functions to accommodate a bunch of people. And even if you don't use 90% of them, it's good to know that they're there and always fun. All right. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Bye.